Shalom family, Shalom. Back at it again. I'm up late night, spooky hours, after dark with it. And the Most High got me up, man. He got it in my spirit. I was on the gram and I saw something about Matthew 12 about, every idle word that is spoken, a man will have to make account for it. And I'm like, man, I know why people don't really understand what this is and what this is going into. And I was like, man, I just gotta tap in and I gotta bring forth some edification. I gotta bring forth some clarity on the topic. So here I am. I pulled a quick one, but it's a good one. Clocking in. All right, let's do it. This is Matthew chapter 12. And we know just a little bit of background. Yahushua, who we call Christ, he's having a conversation with the Pharisees. And midway through the conversation, he's about to rebuke them. Starting at verse 33. Either make the tree good and his fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruit. O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. So we know that everything that a man says that's idle, he shall give an account thereof in the day of the judgment. He just talking about bearing good fruits. You know them by their fruits. An evil man cannot bring forth good things. So what is this? What is this? What is he talking about? Yahushua, he hit the people with the parables. He hit them with the dark sayings. He always floating with the bars, with the metaphors. What is he going into? Okay, let's see. I want to look at this word idle. All right, we in the Blue Letter Bible. If you don't use it for your studies, I highly recommend it. This is Strong's G692, and it's the biblical usage: free from labor, at leisure. When I read that, the first thing I think about is something with no motion. It's not doing anything. It's standing around still. I can think of something that Yahushua said about that. Lazy, shunning the labor which one ought to perform. Off the top of my head, I can think of a couple scriptures about that. It's holding no weight. There's no motion to it. It's not alive. Shunning the labor, which one ought to perform, that like the whole duty of man. Ecclesiastes 12 and 13, the whole duty of man is to keep the commandments. This is a man's labor, and we can get into that too. Definition talked about labor, a lot about labor and work, shunning the work which a man ought to do. This is Luke 9, verse 62. And Yahushua said unto him, no man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom. Now, putting his hand to the plow, that's doing the Lord's work. That's coming out here and that's waking up our people. That's edifying our people, teaching the masses the truth of the Bible. That's the work. That's the work that comes with the pains and the afflictions. And if you've never had a garden, or you've never tilled any land, and you've never been in husbandry, then it's kind of hard to describe. But this is painful labor. It's painful labor, being up, not like a side gig, but this is something very important. You being up, you putting together lessons, you trying to edify the people, you holding councils, you teaching your household, you trying to bring forth goods for the ministry, or you trying to bring forth goods for your camp, or you doing we call this doing the work. You're doing the work. And to back that up, Genesis 2 and verse 5, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. Now let's think about this. We know that this is not talking about the Lord didn't cause it to rain because there was not a man to work the fields. That's irrelevant to this. This is Genesis chapter 2. This is the story about creation. You really think that this is talking about a man that's the Lord need a man to go out and with a hoe and a pickaxe and a hole digger, and he need him to go out and he need him to dig up the land and till the earth. And come on, man, come on, look. Moses was on that mountain for 40 days and for 40 nights getting this information, seeing these visions, being in tune. God showed him the beginning and the end. Some things he declared normally, and some things he hid, and that's in the book of Sirach. I think that's Sirach 43. I can be wrong, but we know that this is talking about the Lord was creating a man to do the work. That's Deuteronomy 32:2. The Lord said that he will cause his doctrine to drop as the rain and the dew. You know, this is metaphoric speech, man. This is metaphoric speech. Adam was created to bring forth the Most High's doctrine, to establish his laws and his commandments, the hierarchy on earth. He had the wisdom to lead all the nations that were in the garden. That's a whole nother topic, and we can definitely get into that one day. All right, now going back into that definition in the Strongs for that word idle, you know, the definitions of it and what its usage is: free from labor, at leisure, lazy, shunning the labor which one ought to perform. And we went into the labor that a man ought to perform is the Most High's law, establishing his commandments, even going into Christ where it said being that light. We know what that light is. The law is a light. The law is a lamp. That's the words of David. And you know, I'm paraphrasing just for the sake of time. But off the top, a prime example of this, Matthew 5:17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Now, you know, we know it's all taught that the laws are done away with because of some misunderstandings in Paul's writings, and you know, Timothy already talked about that. The people already struggle with Paul's writings because they're hard to understand, as well as they struggle with other scriptures. These things have been happening since the beginning of Christ's ministry and before that. But the law is not done away with because Christ said out his own mouth he came not to destroy it, or the prophets. That's another lesson though. Verse 18, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Bro, this is so heavy. He said, if you break one and you teach men to break the commandments, you're gonna be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Now listen, don't even try it. I done heard brothers say some outlandish, wow, like, at least I'm in the kingdom. At least I'm, you know what? Least in the kingdom of heaven. That's the gnashing of teeth. You're not even in the. You're outside the gates. Like, you're living like the heathen. You're gonna be subject to a worse labor than we even are in this life that we live in now in this wicked society. But the emphasis on you teaching men to break the commandments. You teaching, like, we know that the commandments are life. We know that the commandments are the things that a man ought to do, that he should put forth his effort into doing. So when you teach man not to do so, when you teach man to go against the Most High that breathes life into you, then you're causing men to be at a standstill. You're causing them to be free from their labor. You're shunning the labor which a man ought to perform. That's what you're doing. These are idle words. The law is done away with. That's an idle word. You don't have to keep the feast days. That's an idle word. Christ didn't come in the flesh. That's an idle word. Saying that Christ is the Most High God, those are idle words. Those are idle words. These are just examples, because Christ said, if you believe on me, you have to believe on me as the scriptures say. And to teach otherwise will be very idle. So that we have to be very aware about the words that we say and the things that we speak, the communication that we giving off. And even if you're a teacher, the things that you teach your people, your congregation, or your family, your loved ones. We have to make sure that we very in tune with this Bible. So we have to read diligently and study to show ourselves approved, so that we are meeting the standards of what's not an idle word, so that we speak in good communication, so that we saying the right things. Because I don't know about you, but I definitely fear the day that I'll be judged and I have to take into account the words that I said. I know through Christ that my past sins have been wiped clean. They have been washed, and that the things that I've done in my ignorance, the Most High has winked at. But when you come into this truth, it's game time. You're not on the bench. You done checked into the game, and you better have your shoes laid. First, you better have the right sneakers on. You better have your shoes laid. You better have your mind right, because this is not a game. I use the analogy of a game, but it's not a game. We overlook Sirach 1, verse 29. Be not an hypocrite in the sight of men, and take good heed what thou speakest. And what did Christ say? Be not a hypocrite like the Pharisees. If you say something, let it not be a lie. And if you say something, let it be the truth. Be not a hypocrite in the sight of man. That's very sour. You would hate to be found a liar, but you gotta pay attention to what you say. A lot of people just say shit off impulse. Just to say it, just to make themselves sound good or whatever. But we talking about idle words. Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to the things that you say, and have your mind always on the scriptures and always on the word when you speak. When you're speaking about certain things, I try not to even engage in a lot of folly, because this folly is out here everywhere we are. Everything we see, the things that we partake in, is all type of wickedness. So we at a challenge. We at level 10. Level 10 of fighting and facing temptations. Sirach 28, verse 17. The stroke of the whip maketh marks in the flesh, but the stroke of the tongue breaketh the bones. Many have fallen by the edge of the sword, but not so many as have fallen by the tongue. Look. The first thing I thought about was sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The Bible just said that is not true. You know how many people have fallen by the edge of the sword, but more have fallen by the tongue? No, you gotta pay attention that you don't offend. Paul talked about causing a stumbling block. Causing a stumbling block before your brethren by, off the top of my head, Romans 14, we talked about eating foods that were given to idols. And he said, we know idols are nothing. And And one that is strong, he might eat that meat that sacrificed to the idol because he know it is nothing. But if it causes your brother who may be weak in his faith and really, he fresh in the truth and he really thinks about those idols, that they are real, then I don't even eat. The same thing got to be applied when we actually using our words, our communication. You might have somebody that might, you know, go into like, yeah, smoking weed it's a herb and it don't hurt you and whatever brothers say to try to justify any of their actions that's frowned upon by the scriptures are just not good behavior. You know that would be you causing your brother to fall by the tongue. Bring this out, man. This is exactly what we was going into. Exactly what I was just talking about causing your brother to fall. Death and life in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Proverbs 18:21. We know the wages of sin is death. You could be speaking death into somebody by, you know, ignorantly, allowing them to sin or teaching them to sin. I don't believe in, celebrating holidays. I don't believe in celebrating these holidays that we celebrate. No Israelites that I know, believe in that. We all celebrate the feast days, but there may be somebody somewhere, you know, talking about, you celebrate your birthday, go out and live it up. And the Most High gave, but listen, Job said that Job made sacrifices for his children on that day just in case they did sin. It's a lot of things we do know, and it's things that we don't know. We're rehearsing the righteous acts until the Messiah, until Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai, till he returns and he sets things in their order. So like I'm going back to Paul again, like he said in Romans 14, if it's not a faith, then it's a sin that don't even partake in it. But life is also in the power of the tongue. You teaching men what the scriptures say verbatim, the laws that Moses made easy for us to understand, that he made easy for us to comprehend and to eat the roll. This is John 6:63. It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. We know that if you go throughout all the Gospels, Christ is always referring back to the Old Testament. He's always referring back to the Torah, the law, the commandments of God spoken by Moses. He's always teaching those things. Now, going into the uses of that word idle, it was at free from labor, at leisure, shunning the labor, which a man should do. It's no motion, it's lifeless. Yahweh Shai said, the words that I speak, they are spirit and they are life. These words have motion. They quickeneth. That word quickeneth means to make alive. They quickeneth. They bring forth life. They're not dead words. Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. Okay, from the precept that I brought out, all the scriptures that we just went over, we got a good foundation of what corrupt communication may be. Paul writes, he's writing his epistles to these churches where you got people who are new in the faith, never heard of Christ. You got Gentiles who are strange to these customs, even though they're Israelites, and they have been dispersed through the process of time, like it says in Deuteronomy 28. Like it says in the book of Ezekiel, and through all the prophets, it talks about Israel being dispersed and being scattered throughout all nations. Them being in these nations, they've grown up in the cultures of other nations and heathens for centuries. You know, they read in the Bible, they read in the Torah and the Tanakh, the law and the prophets, and things are confusing to them. So they don't really understand what corrupt communication is. That's why it's proceeding out of their mouth. That's why Paul is having to write to them. He's breaking it down like the same way I'm breaking it down. He says, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. What's good? What's the good that they should be communicating that's to edifying? You know, Paul said in Romans 7:12, he said, wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just and good. You know, that's what's good. Timothy said in 2 Timothy 3:16, all scripture is breathed out of God and profitable for teaching, for correction, for reproof. I'm paraphrasing, like for the way that a man should go, for edifying. You know, the scriptures. And the scriptures that they had to read were the law and the prophets. It's all they had. The New Testament wasn't even out yet. They weren't reading their own writings. They were reading the law and the prophets as a foundation. So this is what Paul is saying in Ephesians. The people in Ephesus need to be speaking strictly the law and the prophets, and that's it. Romans 10:14. How then shall they call on him whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? Now this is all going into hearing. You know, they haven't heard of Christ. They haven't heard of these laws. They haven't heard of how they receive salvation, the forgiveness of sins, what's required of them. But how will they hear if it don't come out a man's mouth who knows? The preacher knows. He's the one who's supposed to know. And these things are supposed to come out of his mouth. How to receive salvation. Where Christ said in Matthew 19, if you want the kingdom of heaven, everlasting life, keep the commandments. This is what's supposed to be coming out of man's mouth. I prove that though. Now this is what Joshua commanded us in Joshua 1:8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. You know, the book of the law is always supposed to be in our mouth. This is supposed to be our conversation. You know, we understand that we gotta live our life, and you know, we have fun. We're not a boring people. We have fun. We talk cash money. We're running up. We talk our shit, man. We get into the things of life with Solomon are called vanities. You know, that's just how life is. But we serious about this law. And when we get into this law, and when we talking about these scriptures, you know, that takes up a lot of our day, because this is what we love to do. You know, like Psalms 1:1. You know, a man's pleasures is meditating in the law. Psalms 1:1, chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. Deuteronomy 11:19. And ye shall teach them your children. He's talking about the laws and the commandments. You shall teach them your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Man, come on, man. This is just what Joshua had commanded, because he had already heard this commandment from Moses in Deuteronomy. The law should not depart from our mouth. So even when we teaching our children, we teach our children to keep the law so the next generation can be established, and they have a great foundation. Speaking into them when we sitting down, when we at the dinner table, I'm teaching my children the commandments. When I'm walking, they riding they bike, and I'm walking beside them. I'm using life as a prop to teach the commandments. When we out in the garden and we picking our vegetables, I'm using the garden as a prop. I'm using it as an outlet to teach the laws of God. When we laying down in the bed, and when I get done reading that night story, that bedtime book, I top it off with some simple commandments that I can teach them, that even at that young age that they understand. And every day the process repeats, so that when they get older and when they understand, and when the Lord grants them wisdom and they're able to discern between things, it's going to be because of that law. They're going to lean on that law. They're going to lean on what's good. And they're not going to speak idle words, because they're going to already know. They're going to have the wisdom and the understanding of what's idle. And I'm going to teach them Christ, his words that quicken them. Sirach 39 and verse 1. But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, and be occupied in prophecies. He gonna go to those elders that have labored in the law, they have labored in studies, they have read a multitude of books, they have they study the textual criticisms, and they go into the languages, and they go into the history. He gonna be at their feet. Verse 2, he will keep the sayings of the renowned men, and where subtle parables are, he will be there also. The things that he's taught by these men who are well studied and well learned in the law, they're gonna always be in his mind. Even things that are stumbling blocks that he may come across, he'll be able to go to them, and they'll teach him and they'll edify him. And where do we even get these men from? What are these men? These men don't pop up out of nowhere. They had to have men to teach them. But those men had to have men to teach them. And it had to come from men having good communication, teaching the law, wherever they were, teaching their sons and their daughters, and their sons and daughters raising up and teaching their kids, and then them teaching men in the community, and so on and so forth. And that's the thing that we got to get back to. We gotta let our communication be good. There's a lot of things that we'll say in this world that may not be idle. That may be idle, but it may not be conflicting with our salvation. Like if I'm talking about the basketball game, or if I'm talking about the finals, or if I'm talking about the Super Bowl, or I'm ranking a nigga, or I'm clowning somebody, you know what I'm saying? Those are words that don't really have no motion to them. But they don't really afflict my salvation. They don't hinder my salvation. But we gotta let words that are life, we have to let those outweigh all the folly and all, whatever we get into. I'm not saying don't laugh and joke, but look at the times. We don't got a lot of time. We gotta get to it. We gotta get to it. We gotta teach our people. We gotta teach our kids. Verse 5. He will give his heart to resort early to the Lord that made him, and will pray before the Most High, and will open his mouth in prayer and make supplication for his sins. Now we talking about words that quicken up and that are not idle. Prayer, communication that is coming out your mouth. You gotta pray to the Most High. You gotta pray to the Most High to ease his captivity. You gotta pray to the Most High for a little relief, for a little peace, for a little sanity in this world. How you gotta come before the Most High in prayer. You got to. These are one of the things that we should do, and it's one of the things that Solomon commanded us. I believe that's 1 Kings chapter 8 and 2 Chronicles chapter 6, I believe. Verse 6, when the great Lord will, he shall be filled with the spirit of understanding. He shall pour out wise sentences and give thanks unto the Lord in his prayer. Now we know that understanding comes from keeping the law. All that keep the law have a good understanding. That's Psalms 111-10. So when we keep the law, just like Christ said, when you keep the law, and then you'll pour out wise sentences, and you'll keep the law, and you teach men to keep the law, and you give thanks unto the Lord in his prayer. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is good communication, man. This is a triple whammy. You can't beat it. You know what I'm saying? You can't beat it. A spirit of good understanding gonna be given to you for keeping the law, and then your communication gonna be keeping the law, and then you're gonna be giving prayer, and we know that God heareth not sinners. That's John 9:31. I believe that's in Proverbs 28. You know, God heareth not sinners. He that turneth away from the law, his prayers shall be an abomination. That's a triple whammy, man. But look, I done ran it up. It's late. I've been burning that candle, man. Trying to put together something so that people can digest. You know, this is milk. This is milk at 1 in the morning. Cookies and milk right here, and I hope you can eat it up. I hope you ate it up, and I hope it was sweet to you. You know, I pray that I can give the people some direction, and I pray that I can give the people something different with a different approach. But you know, this is saints advocating for law and truth. Salt, we are the salt of the earth. I hope this is edifying. I hope brothers write these precepts down and go and study, man. Go and study. But you know, I gotta get out of here, man. Hey, Shalom, Israel.